is there some sort of, I don't know, is there something in the air? Or is everybody, or is anybody that's getting carried away with what's going on with Max Verstappen?
I think there are some people that are getting carried away. I think this is going to be the true test of it. Singapore has historically been a very tough track for Red Bull and Max Verstappen. He's never won here. The course is hot. It has all slow corners, which degrades the tires much faster, which all kind of fall into McLaren's hands. The higher temperatures, less tire wear, or easier on the tires is definitely a McLaren play. So I think this week is going to be the true test as to whether the past two races of Max Verstappen dominance are for real or not. I think this is the week we see what the true difference really is.
So at this point, the way these championship odds are, it's still in your mind, it's too early. It's even though the odds will start to go down if he does well, this is definitely not the week to do it based on what you just said, that this is not a good track for Max and Red Bull. So you don't really feel bad at all about passing on this week. And if anything, maybe it'll bonus up some more odds and so forth. But how many other tracks are on this left on the schedule where Red Bull and Verstappen just, you think it's just not good? It's just not going to work out.
There are 7 more races to go. This race this weekend is probably the biggest test. So the way that the two tracks that Red Bull and Max Verstappen have done well at recently, and he won both of them, are Monza and Azerbaijan. And both of those are low downforce, high speed tracks. The Red Bull has a new floor. It seems to have helped them a bit, certainly on those two tracks. The rest of the tracks are a little bit more moderate. I would say Las Vegas maybe a challenge for them, but it's going to be cold because that race is run in the middle of the night and it gets cold in the desert. If it were hot like Singapore, maybe we'd have a similar situation. But I think this is going to be the hardest week for Max Verstappen.
Okay.
So if you're looking at the championship odds, like you said, this is not the week to take him. Bank on that progress that they've shown over the past two races not to show up at Singapore because it is such a unique track for them and a tough track for them. And I hope you get a little bit better odds going out. That said, I think there are roughly maybe just under 200 points available through the last 7 races and a couple of sprint races left. And I think Verstappen needs to make up about 70. So he's got to have a lot of things go his direction, and he's got to have some big mistakes coming from some of the bigger competitors, specifically McLaren, in order to get the job done.
Yeah. And I would say that, well, look, I mean, so look, you want to win the race and all, but realistically, is third the best he can hope for?
You know, if McLaren doesn't shoot themselves in the foot like they tend to do frequently, I think third would probably be the best that he can do. He did finish second last year, so depending on how good that floor or how big of a difference that floor really makes at their toughest track, potentially second. I do think the win is a little bit much to hope for. Podium finish would be a good result for Red Bull and Verstappen this weekend.
And I mean, look, you would be gambling, obviously, because if something freaky happened where McLaren, both of the drivers screwed up somehow and just paved the way for Max to steal the race.
Like Azerbaijan. Yeah. They both had poor qualifying. Piastri really screwed up in the race, false start, and then stopped in order to not get a penalty, was passed by everybody, and then ended up crashing on the first lap anyway. So Norris was just too far behind, ended up having a slow stop as well in that race. So again, McLaren can shoot themselves in the foot. Usually it only happens to one driver, not both though. So Piastri, I think, is the standout this weekend. Norris a close second. Typically speaking, the person that wins pole for this race is the one that wins it, though. I just think that Red Bull's historical trouble on this particular track, plus the hot conditions, the fact that tire degradation is going to be a problem, We know McLaren is better on the tires. I do think this is a McLaren weekend, and I think Verstappen and Red Bull realistically should just be shooting for the podium.
And is there anything, what could happen outside of pole? What could happen to change your mind a little bit with your prediction on Sunday if things go a certain way on Saturday?
If
What
things,
exactly, how it would have to go?
yeah, if Friday practice, if you see Max Verstappen out front in Friday practice, 2 sessions on Friday, I think that starts to sway the opinion. And yeah, maybe we really do have some progress here. If not, if it's the classic McLarens up there in the front pretty consistently, then I wouldn't change. And even still, even with the Friday practice, Max Verstappen would still have to come out and basically definitely qualify on front row. Certainly, ideally, pole on Saturday too.
All right. So that's the championship outlook. Let's talk about the race, and here are the odds. So based on what you said, a little bit surprising to see the odds like this.
Yeah, like I said, I think people are buying into the Verstappen hype with the 2 races where he went out and dominated. Singapore is just such a different track, and it's been such a thorn in the side of Red Bull for so long. I think they're seeing the second place last year, which is definite improvement. However, I think he was 20 seconds behind Norris, the winner, so McLaren easily had the upper hand. I think if Piastri would have qualified a little bit better in that race, he probably would have been able to get by Verstappen or finished ahead of Verstappen. So again, I do think that all signs point to McLaren this weekend. Piastri would be my top choice, though it's a little bit shaky given the mistakes that he had last week. Doing that back-to-back when you're in championship contention, though, is a death sentence. For your hopes, though. So one would hope that he's able to get his mind straight and be able to execute this weekend at Singapore. I think even odds for Piastri and Norris at +2 is fair. I bet you McLaren as the winning manufacturer is negative. If you have to flip the coin, I would go with Piastri. If the odds aren't negative on, or too far negative on the manufacturer, I might go with McLaren as the winner, though.
Okay.
Not bad. I would probably take McLaren as manufacturer winning car at -165 today as top choice. If you're going to choose driver, I'd probably give the edge to Piastri.
All right. And again, it is 6 races to go after this, correct?
Correct. United States will be the next one. The season finishes at Abu Dhabi first weekend in December.
Okay. Yes, because they're coming to America. And that's going to be for, we got the Texas race, then we've got Mexico City back to back. They'll be returning to Las Vegas after their trip to, what is that, Brazil?
Brazil, yep.
And then they end up overseas at Abu Dhabi in Qatar. All right. Anyway, we'd all, just for the fun of it, like to see things get really close, especially because, as we said earlier, just probably a couple months ago, when they were making silly mistakes at that point, that you could tell. And then we just saw it in the last race that, when you're not a champion, you've never been a champion before, this is what you got to go through. And sometimes the pressure, even though you got 2 drivers, sometimes it's the same team. F1's different from NASCAR when you're talking teams, as we all know. So it's just, if one guy's off, sometimes the other guy could be off too. And especially when they've got the multi-champion breathing down their neck, which he hasn't been breathing down their neck yet. But just imagine if he can get closer. That could make things really fun.
Yeah, if he gets closer, like I said, Singapore is going to be the true test. If he's able to be close to the McLarens, I think they've got some real pressure going into these last 6 races after Singapore, though. But again, don't buy into the hype too early. It's still too far out to call. Still looks like a 2-horse race between the 2 McLaren drivers. And, the worst case scenario is that Verstappen does poorly at Singapore, and you get a little bit of extra odds if you want to end up taking him, thinking that he can chase them down in the last 6 races.
Yeah, that might be something we'll be able to talk about in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, yep.
2 weeks.
will be or COTA. The race is on October 19th.
All right, sounds good. So again, next week we will return for Tuesday, and it'll be all NASCAR. But then in 2 weeks, when F1 comes to America and Texas, we'll be here to cover that as well. CJ, you'll have your report ready for Friday into Saturday. Of course, it'll be available at rotowire.com on Friday.
That is correct. And we'll also post the link to the rotowire.com preview for both F1 and NASCAR in the comments section of these videos.
Sounds good. CJ, appreciate it. Thanks, everybody out there watching us again this week. We appreciate your comments. And, of course, subscribing to the channel. That's the best way to support the channel. You could also, of course, hit the thanks icon on the bottom of the screen if you want to support the channel financially. We'll see everybody again real soon right here for more auto racing coverage on Proline TV.